So now that we've formatted our SD card, we can now create a boot disk. So the first thing that we need to do is download a OS, and so I like to use Kali Linux on the Raspberry Pi, and the process that I'm going to take you through is going to be the same for any operating system and any sort of usage you want to use. So I'm using it for the Raspberry Pi. It's going to be exactly the same for a desktop, a server, etc., etc. And so what I want to do is go over to the Kali Linux website. So here I am, kali.org, and I'm going to go to download Kali Linux. And so over here you've got some Kali Linux images. You've got 64-bit, you've got 32-bit installers, but I don't want these because I'm installing this on a Raspberry Pi. It's a different architecture, so it's going to be the ARM architecture. So it's this one down here that I need. So I'm going to click on this, which brings me to this page, and here I've got the images for the ARM architecture. You've got Pi64, which is another microprocessor. You've got the Raspberry Pi. You've got some other ones down here, Banana, API, Gateworks, etc. So the Raspberry Pi image I need is going to be 64-bit because I am going to install that on the Raspberry Pi version 4, which is also 64-bit. I can see Raspberry Pi version 3 and 2, and I didn't realize that they had 64-bit for those, but definitely it's 64-bit for the version 4 of Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to save that file, which is going to be saved to my download folder. And I'll fast forward this bit because it does take a little while for it to download. The image size is roughly about almost 10 gig, I think, so that will take a little while. So I'll pause this and then I'll fast forward. So that's now downloaded, and I'm now going to go to my downloads folder. So downloads, and I'll just do a list, and you can see that I've got a few images for different operating systems. I've got Raspbian, I've got Ubuntu server as well. So the one that I've just downloaded, and I've also got an older version of Raspberry Pi 3 for Kali Linux. So the one which I've just downloaded is this one. So it's Raspberry Pi 4. So I'm just going to copy that. And what I need to do, I need to uncompress it. So to uncompress it, it's a XC file. So if you don't have this already installed, you want to do a sudo at install XC utils, and I've already got that installed. So as you can see, I've already got it installed, so it won't install it again. And so what I want to do, I just want to uncompress that file. So it is a unxc, and I can just paste that in there, and I can just run that. So that might just take a little while to uncompress. Okay, so that has uncompressed, so now I can do a list of that directory, and here it is here. Okay, so when it uncompresses, it actually gets rid of the uncompressed file. So now I've done that, I can write that image to my card, and my card is still in the drive. So if I do a cd media pi user, and here you can see it here, so that's my card. Also you can see it there, 256 gigabyte volume is still inserted. So just go back to the downloads folder. Alright, so now what I want to do, I want to write that to the card. So I am going to, there's two ways in which you can do that. So I'm going to, there is a library way which is GDD rescue, and there's a traditional way of doing it. So I'm going to show you the traditional way of doing it, which is going to be sudo. But before I do that, I'll actually show you the DD rescue way. So if you don't have GDD rescue, then you're going to do a sudo apt install GDD rescue, and I've already got that installed. So yeah, so I don't need to install that. Usually, what I do it this way, and I find it a good way to do it. So it's going to be DD rescue dforce, just get the image, so just copy that again. I think I've already got it copied, and then it's going to be dev mmc blk 0. So if I just press enter, that will go ahead and disk. But what I'm going to do, I'm also going to show you the traditional way in which to do it. So it's going to be sudo dd bs equals 4m if equals then the image file of equals dev mmc blk 0. Now the reason why I'm showing you this way is because I always like to do things as raw as possible when showing how to do things, so that way you're not really too dependent on downloading libraries. You can just do it out of the box. But typically I use GDD rescue, but this is another way in which you can do it. So we will do it the GDD rescue way. So sudo dd rescue dforce Kali Linux dev mmc blk 0. Okay, so just make sure that is correct, and then we can write to disk. And now it's starting to write. So yeah, I just wanted to show you the other way, the traditional way, what that command looks like. The DD rescue way is a much more reliable way to do it. And that will take a little while. So we'll just let that run. So now that that's finished, you can now look at the file system, and you can see the image is copied over. You've got two drives. You've got boot and you've got root fs. So if I just click on boot, then you can see everything in here that is to boot up the operating system. And then you've got root fs, and this is the directory structure for the operating system. So we're just going to make some changes, because now what we want to do, we want to make it headless. So when we insert the card into the Raspberry Pi, then we don't have to connect a monitor and keyboard. We can just go ahead, plug it in, and then SSH into it, and everything will work. So alright, so the next thing we want to do is modify some files. And I'll just run a sync here first. So the first thing I want to do, I want to create a file that gives me my Wi-Fi connection when I boot up. So I'm going to go to rootfs etc network manager system connections. So within this particular directory, I need to create a file, a configuration for my Wi-Fi, and that configuration is going to be based on my existing connection. So if I've got an existing connection, I can just copy that. So I'm using Ubuntu, so it uses the exact same architecture as Kali, and I can just copy my configuration from Ubuntu. So I'm going to copy that, but at the same time as I copy it, you'll see exactly what you need to create, what file you need to create into that directory if you don't have the same Ubuntu architecture as I have. So go to, on my local, I'm going to go to cd etc network manager, so it is capital N manager and system connections. So within this particular directory, I can see some files where I've actually made connections. I've got existing connections for SSIDs, and I can just go into one of these and copy the exact same configuration. So if I do a sudo cat, and now I can see my existing configuration. So I can just copy all of that, but before I do, I'm just going to copy the name of that file, because I need to create the exact same file and put that into here. So what I could do, I could just copy it, do a straight copy, but I'll give you a chance to see exactly what I'm doing here rather than just copying it. So what I could do, I could just go backwards and drop that folder. This is just a quick way of getting that path, and I'm going to do a sudo vim the name of this file and I think I did copy that, but I need to copy it again. Well, obviously I've just copied that bit, so I need to copy this, and now I can just copy that straight into there. So we need to make some modifications here. So the interface name is going to be WLAN 0, because that's the name of the card on the Raspberry Pi, the Wi-Fi card on the Raspberry Pi. If you had a additional Wi-Fi, you might have WLAN 1, 2, 3, etc. But the one in there which comes as default is WLAN 0, and the permissions that we want to give it is going to be user Kali then colon semicolon. So all of this we want to keep. We've got a MAC address, we've got node, we've got the name of our SSID, and then we want to give it a password. So just in this bit where it says PSK, this is where you give a password. Whatever your password is, you put that in there. So I'm covering mine, so you'll just put your password in there. And then we've got DNS search method, we've got address generated, mode stable privacy, DNS search, and method auto. So you want to keep all of that. So we'll just create that file. Now if I go over to my directory, I can see that file is now created. Now the next thing that I want to do, I want to make sure that that particular file, just drop that in there to get the path. That's just a quick easy way of doing it. I want to change the permissions, so sudo change mod 600. Okay, so that's now changed, so you can see it there. So now that I've done that, the second thing I need to do, I need to go into another file. So there's another file which is located here, which is rootfs etc network manager, again same place, and this particular file here. So I want to make changes to this file, so I'm just going to drop that file in, and it just gives me my path, and I can do a sudo vim, and I want to change managed to true, and quit that. And so there's another file I need to modify, and that's going to be sudo, I can actually drop this file in, so I'll just show you where it is. So the next file is going to be network interfaces, this particular file, so I can just drop that in. And so just do a sudo vim, and then I'm just going to add some stuff in here. So it will be auto WLAN 0 iFace WLAN 0 iNet DHCP. Okay, so that's done, and there's one more file, and that is in etc, and then lightdm, and it's going to be lightdm.conf. So I can just drop that in, get the path, sudo vim, and we're going to make some changes to this file. So we're going to look for a line which says PAM auto login service. So if we just look for that, so it's this one here. And what we want to do, we just want to uncomment that line. And this allows you to auto login. So this is necessary because when you want to log in initially, and you just want to go straight into, you're doing it headless, you need it to go straight in and log in. So you don't want to go into the terminal, connect to terminal, and then type in a username and password. So you just want to do an auto login, so it goes straight in. And then we want to look for a line at the bottom, I believe, which is auto user. just down here, and you just want to uncomment that, and we want to call that Kali. So Kali is the name of the root username, default root username, and then the default user password is also Kali. So it's Kali. So if you did connect a monitoring keyboard, it will ask you for the username and password, and you just type Kali. So we're just going to put that in there, and then for the auto timeout, we'll just uncomment that as well, and that's all we need to do. So I will save that, and then what we need to do, we just need to unmount. So if I just do a unmount on that drive and unmount on that drive, so that's now unmounted, and it's safe for me to take that out. So now that we've formatted the card, we can unmount and eject it, and we can put it into our Raspberry Pi. So I'll put it into the slot. Sorry if it's dark. I mean, I'm filming in the daytime. It's January, and recently it's just been really dark. So let's get some light over here. That's better. So I'm just going to put it in the slot. The slot is just underneath here. Just underneath the Raspberry Pi. Slot that in. Right, I did say that I'm going to connect this headless, which I am, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect a monitor to it anyway, so that way you can see it boot up. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to log in. I don't have to set up Wi-Fi. All of that will happen automatically. But I'll connect a monitor, and that way you can see how it boots up and goes straight into Kali. So I'll connect the monitor into the HDMI. And I'll connect the power supply into the USB slot. And what we should see the green light flicker. Once the green light flickers, then we know it's booting up. Okay, so there it is. So that's booting up. The fan is started, and I'll just spin the camera around so that way you can see it boot up on the screen. So it'll just take a little while. So what it's doing is it's resizing the drive, the disk, which is the drive, and it's doing an initial boot up where it's looking for the Wi-Fi configurations and configuring that into some of its configuration files. And I'll just see if I can focus a little better here. There you go. Once it gets down to this bit, this could take a little while. If there's a faulty disk, it won't get past this bit. So if you see it hang over here, you know there's something wrong with your disk. This is usually a good indication how many blocks it's resized. Just give that a little bit longer. Okay, that looks successful, so it's just now going to look for the Wi-Fi. Doing some other configurations, and I'll get ready to pan out a bit, and so that way you can see another part which I'm going to show you, which will be the Wi-Fi. Typically on the screen it will ask you for a username and password, but we're going to auto bypass that. And you can probably do the same thing if you're creating a boot disk for a desktop or a server, depending on the operating system, of course, how it allows you to do it. Okay, so now it's going into the screen, and get ready to pan out a bit. So I'm just focusing at the top. Sorry for the reflection. Okay, just over here. Alright, so we're now into the Kali Linux desktop. And so I'm just going to point over here. So you can see, as long as you have that, you have a Wi-Fi signal, then that means everything is okay. So it's logged in and it's connected to the Wi-Fi. So that's how you create the boot disk, and you can do a headless login. And as mentioned, typically you won't really connect a monitor, so you could wait about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, probably a little bit too long. It's the time it took between myself putting in the disk and then booting it up, and then you can just SSH into it. So what I'll do now, I'll show you how to SSH into the Pi in a new video.